In 2 days you have earnings, so we're going to focus actually on climate change and some of the things that we're seeing out there. What do you need for finance at COP26?
Well, one, it's great to be here. It's great to be in this museum. I feel a little bit guilty that we're surrounded by steam engines. We sort of created this climate issue, and Barclays was a first financer of steam engines. But this is a great opportunity for people to come together to focus on the climate challenge. And I think the role that the United Kingdom is taking in trying to be a leader in dealing with the climate issue is terrific. One of the assets that the UK brings to the climate issue is it's got great universities, great scientists, and they're focused on innovation and new ways to try to deal with the climate issue. I was recently in both Glasgow, where we have a new technology center that's got all sorts of universities around it. I went to Cambridge, went to Oxford, and I think the investment in technology and innovation and scientists trying to deal with the climate issue is one of the things that the UK brings to dealing with this great challenge that we all have.
But Jes, I mean, this is only one city trying to compete for this global role. So you are, putting out there some of the strengths of the City of London. Is there anything that the government could do better to actually, be more credible and attract more? And how is COP26 important? What happens if COP26 fails?
Well, first of all, the banks will play a very important role in dealing with climate issues. We have our balance sheets, how we lend money, where we use our balance sheets to direct investment, but ultimately to deal with the climate issue, which is a $3 to $4 to $5 trillion a year challenge for the globe. We're going to need the global capital markets, and there's no question that London is a center amongst the capital markets. New York and London, I think, are the major players there, and therefore finding investors that want to buy securities issued by companies and governments that are involved in the transition to a greener economy. London's going to play a very, very important role with that. Barclays, being the major British investment bank, will play our role in that. We were joint lead manager in underwriting the first gilt green bond issued by the British government. So finance will play a big part, and because of that, London will play a very big part. And financing that change and understanding the challenges we have around transition, that's what this symposium is all about.
So what are you expecting actually today? Will there be money on the table? And what is Barclays doing to either speed up some of the changes or actually exit brown financing?
Well, the most important thing is what the British government is laying down. From the Prime Minister to the Chancellor, they want the UK to be a leader in addressing the climate issue. And they're dedicating the resources of the British government and the City of London in order to do that. So they want a leading role. They've got the ability to take a leading role, and the banking community and the finance community, I think, should be supportive of the British government in doing that.
Is there anything that you need from the UK government, away from green financing, that would actually make your life easier? What do they need to do for finance today?
One of the things we also need to acknowledge is we've just gone through hopefully a once-in-a-century pandemic. And governments around the world, but very much the UK government, stepped in to support the British economy, to support the British financial system. They used their balance sheet, they used the Bank of England's balance sheet. And actually, if you think about what we were facing a little over a year ago when the pandemic really hit, and you had the greatest economic contraction we've seen in our lifetimes, and now we have a recovery that we haven't seen since the end of World War II. It's quite remarkable what the government has done to step in, try to deal with the pandemic, and give places like London the financial wherewithal and an economy to try to now deal with this climate issue.
But huge uncertainties actually ahead, right? You have the energy costs, you don't exactly know what interest rates go because of the inflationary pressures. So is there anything that they could do better?
Well, they have a really, really tough game to play going forward. The deficit is high. The balance sheet of the Bank of England is high. You're seeing signs of inflation, whether it's transitory or something more long-term. They have to begin to stop the quantitative easing, the taper as people talk about. That's going to be a real challenge. So you've got issues of supply chains, you've got issues of growing inflation. To navigate economically what's going on for the next year or so is going to be a real trick for everybody.
What's your biggest challenge going forward? I know you can't really talk about the bank because you have earnings in 2 days, but given all these factions and all this, things that you need to deal with, how's the return to the office, for example, going?
I think, Barclays, we've come out of in the first 6 months of the year, it was the most profitable 6 months in the history of the bank. We've never had a level of capital that we have today. So the truth is the bank is quite strong. We need to make sure we're doing our part to give back to the UK and to give back to the global economy. We need to do that. We need to understand how we help small businesses and consumers as they go through this. So that's one of the particular challenges of the bank. We have a lot of resources to face that challenge, and I'm pretty optimistic that we and the governments will be able to navigate through the next couple of quarters and next years. And there are clear challenges out there. There are people that are suffering. All the challenges being caused by the supply chain issue is real. But I think ultimately, human ingenuity and the strength of the bank will get us through this.
What's your take on people coming back to the office? Are they happy to be back? How many people are back?
It depends upon the location. In the United States, for instance, we have the vast majority of our people are back in. In the United States, you're allowed to ask if someone's vaccinated or not. And so we only allow vaccinated employees back into our office. And I think in New York, over 90% of our employees are now vaccinated. And people generally want to get back into the office. When you've got 8 people on a Zoom call, that works. But when you've got 8 people where 6 are in an office together and 2 are on Zoom, the 2 that are on Zoom want to get back into the office. So I think there'll be a momentum building about getting people back to work. Flexible working is going to stay with us. I think it was actually here before the pandemic. I think the iPhone created that. In the old days, you'd go and work from 8 in the morning to 7 at night. Then when you got home, you were done.
Yeah.
Now you get home and at 9:30 at night, you're looking at your iPhone, seeing what your emails are from your job. So I think flexible working is here to stay. We did a survey prior to the pandemic. Most of our employees were only working actually 4 days a week in the office and taking a 5th day somewhere, traveling, et cetera. I think that will continue. But we just opened a brand new campus in Glasgow for a technology center. We have 5
and you were there last week.
I was there. We will employ 5,000 people. It's a phenomenal facility, and people will come into the office. So.
Jess, how much time do you spend thinking about crypto and how you should, what you should be doing in that space, actually?
We think a lot about crypto. We're working quite a bit with the Bank of England. They're very focused on it. I don't think that the unregulated crypto market has much room. It'll have its place. Clearly, the regulators need to be focused on what is it being used for? Is it illicit, et cetera? But then I think the real issue is around central bank digital currencies. So digital currencies that are supported by central banks around the world. I know the Bank of England is very focused on it. We're talking to them about it. But one of the critical points that people need to realize is one of the central functions of banks is we take deposits. We take those deposits and we make loans. We give mortgages, we give loans to consumers. If we lose that deposit base, we lose the ability to make loans. And I don't think that central banks want to get into the business of extending credit. So there's going to have to be a navigation. I do think we'll be digitizing the transactional part of payments, and some sort of cryptocurrencies supported by a central bank has a role, but we have a lot of thinking to do first.